Chapter 1. The day the one that got away got married, I dressed to the nines. It was only when I arrived that I realized the groom bore a striking resemblance to me. She, in her pristine white wedding dress, looked down on me and mocked my fanciful delusions. "You don't actually think I still have feelings for you, do you? We grew up together, but if he hadn't been studying abroad back then, I wouldn't have given you a second glance." My former classmates also shot me looks of ridicule. Not only are they in love, but he's also rich. How can you possibly compare to him? Yes, how could I possibly compare? Perhaps with the fact that his father was on his knees last night, begging me to save his family's company. The news of Victoria Halloway's wedding hit me like a bolt from the blue. She had sent me an invitation, so despite the storm of emotions in my heart, I decided to go and see for myself. I wanted to see which man was lucky enough to be with Victoria in the end. Victoria was my high school classmate. Back then, she was the goddess in the eyes of many boys. At that time, I had come from a small town to study in the big city. Seeing my glamorous classmates, I couldn't help but feel a little insecure and nervous. Victoria was the first person to show me kindness. On the first day of school, the bag my mom had used to pack my belongings tore, and my clothes spilled all over the ground. I was surrounded by gawking students, and I squatted on the floor in humiliation, desperately trying to stuff the clothes back into my arms. That's when Victoria appeared. She was like an angel from a fairy tale, walking toward me in the sunlight and pulling me up from the ground. "Which dorm are you in? Let me help you carry your things." I had never seen such a beautiful smile. From then on, every description of a radiant smile in books brought her face to mind. She had a wonderful personality and took special care of me. It was only natural that I would fall for Victoria. What I never expected was that Victoria would fall for me too. The year we graduated from high school, we officially started dating. It shocked everyone. Even though we were in a long-distance relationship for all 4 years of college, my feelings for Victoria never wavered. Later, I stayed in that city for work, and Victoria, unable to bear the days we spent apart, broke up with me. I secretly took a bus to see her once. Her face was pale, and she was so thin she looked to be in great pain. At that moment, I made a resolution. I would work hard until I could stand before Victoria Halloway with my head held high once more. I would tell her that this time, no matter where she was, I could be by her side. Unfortunately, before I could muster the courage, she was already set to become another man's wife. Standing at the entrance of the hotel, I nervously adjusted my tie. Normally, I don't care much about my appearance. The housekeeper usually prepares my clothes the day before, and I just have to put them on. But today, before leaving, I must have stood in front of the mirror and tried on 5 or 6 different suits. If I had known, I would have spent more money on clothes back then. Tugging at my cuffs, I took a deep breath. I was already 27, but whenever it came to anything related to Victoria, my hands still trembled with nervousness. If my friends saw me, they'd laugh at me for being such a hopeless romantic. I wonder if Victoria will like what I'm wearing. A staff member led me toward the wedding hall. Because of a last-minute short meeting, I wasn't early. The greeters at the door were gone, leaving only a wedding portrait of the bride and groom. Honestly, I came to Victoria's wedding today with a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to see what was so special about the groom that he could win Victoria's hand. But when I saw the wedding photo, I froze, because the groom in the picture looked about 50% like me. Chapter 2. The young women in my company loved to read novels in their spare time. I'd picked up a few things from their conversations. Almost instantly, the phrase substitute trope popped into my head. I couldn't help but wonder if Victoria, like me, had never forgotten our relationship. Perhaps she just didn't understand how I felt, so she was too shy to reach out. And in the end, she married a man who looked like me. This budding thought quickly consumed all my reason. Even though I knew how absurd it was, a flicker of hope ignited within me. A few days ago, when I saw Victoria's message, I was overcome with despair. I clutched a box filled with all the memories of my youth and drank myself into a stupor all night. I kept telling myself to give up, that the past was the past and could never be reclaimed. But now, that tiny, unextinguished spark had flared into hope once more. I pushed open the heavy doors of the hall, and my eyes immediately found Victoria, chatting among the crowd. She was turned to the side, her high bridged nose above ruby-red lips. Compared to the year we broke up, Victoria's face had a more mature, captivating charm, making her look even more radiant. The white wedding dress made her seem otherworldly. Just one look made my eyes sting. We hadn't seen each other in so long. I forced my legs to move, walking slowly toward Victoria. The laughing crowd fell silent as they noticed me. Victoria seemed to sense something and turned to look at me. The moment our eyes met, it was as if I saw all our beautiful moments flash before me. During our 4 years of long distance in college, I would visit Victoria's city every break. She loved to be affectionate, her favorite thing being to poke my dimples with her finger. Her laughter was so infectious, utterly adorable. In our sophomore year, I heard a guy at her university was aggressively pursuing her. Consumed by fear and worry, I couldn't sleep a wink. I took the earliest high-speed train to her school. I thought she would be angry at my unannounced arrival. But to my surprise, when Victoria saw me, her eyes lit up and she threw herself into my arms. In that moment, my heart was finally at peace. We traveled to many places together. Victoria's favorite was the ocean. She would cry silently while looking at the sea, and I would tease her for being overly sentimental and soft-hearted. I dared not forget a single one of those many memories, replaying them in my dreams. And now the person I longed for was right in front of me. How could I possibly remain calm? Vicky. I whispered her name. If I just reached out, I could pull her into my arms. Victoria studied me with those eyes, her lips moving slightly. The next second, I heard her voice. You actually came. The dream shattered in an instant. I stood frozen, feeling lost and confused. What do you mean? Sincere, you didn't think I sent you an invitation because I couldn't forget you, did you? But I should probably thank you. If it weren't for you making him jealous, we might not have gotten together. Victoria's voice was the same as I remembered, yet it sounded so foreign. Her gaze passed over me to someone behind me, and then she lifted her dress and strode over. I turned to see the man from the wedding photo take her hand and walk toward me. First time we're meeting, I'm Ethan Shaw. Thanks for taking care of Vicky for me for 4 years, my substitute. So the substitute trope was real, except I was the substitute. Chapter 3. I finally snapped back to reality from the series of blows. My gaze, filled with shock and disbelief, fell upon Victoria once more. When I spoke again, even my voice was dry and hoarse. So from the very first time we met, back in our first year of high school, you approached me with an ulterior motive? Victoria's eyes were filled with contempt as she nodded nonchalantly. Of course. Did you really think I'd help some country bumpkin out of the goodness of my heart? If you didn't look a bit like Eth, I wouldn't have even bothered with you. The whispers of the surrounding crowd grew louder. My head felt like a giant firework had just exploded inside it, and I could barely stand. All those beautiful memories I had cherished and savored, it turned out they all began with such a sordid reason. A tumor has to be removed all at once. I gritted my teeth against the pain in my heart and continued to ask, why? If he was the one you loved all along, why did you get together with me? I didn't want to miss a single expression on Victoria's face. Staring at her with an almost self-torturing intensity, Victoria let out an exaggerated sigh and turned to Ethan Shaw beside her. I was all too familiar with that look and expression. It was her playful pout when she pretended to be angry. It was all because Eth's parents didn't approve and sent him abroad. I was heartbroken, so I just wanted to find someone to make him jealous. Ethan pinched her nose, his tone dripping with affection. Only I would spoil you like this. Victoria giggled and stuck out her tongue. When her eyes landed back on me, Her girlish demeanor vanished completely. "Since you want to know, I'll let you have the whole truth. I chose that university because of a pact I made with Eth. It's just a shame he had that damn fiancée at the time. Otherwise I would have broken up with you long ago. The rumor you heard about a guy pursuing me? I said that on purpose for Eth to hear. When you came to find me, Eth was nearby. All my affection and intimacy with you were for him to see. And on your birthday before we broke up, I said I was sick. The truth is, that's when Eth confessed his feelings to me. Every word from Victoria was like a knife, stabbing me relentlessly. I felt as if my heart had stopped beating, leaving it a bloody mess. Everything was for Ethan Shaw. She had never loved me. My hand rested on a nearby table, the veins on the back of it bulging. "Victoria, what did I do wrong for you to treat me like this?" Just as Victoria was about to speak, a familiar male voice cut her off. "You didn't do anything wrong, but who can compete with childhood sweethearts? Besides, Ethan is the son of Jonathan Shaw, the Mr. Shaw. What do you have to compare?" Trevor Jones strode in from the entrance, coolly handing a red envelope, a cash gift to Victoria. "I haven't congratulated you two yet. Happy wedding." He smiled, his eyes flicking toward me as he raised his voice. "I hope you two have a long and happy life together and have children soon. Don't let certain people take advantage." The certain people he was referring to was me. I remained silent, my mind replaying his words. Jonathan Shaw, Mr. Shaw. Was that the man who knelt before me last night, begging me to help him, to save the Shaw family? Chapter 4. "Trevor, you're so late. You'll have to down a glass as punishment later." Ethan's words pulled me from my thoughts. Watching how familiar they were with each other, a bold idea formed in my mind. I looked at Trevor in disbelief. Even though I already had an answer in my heart, I couldn't stop myself from asking. "Trevor, you knew about this all along, didn't you?" Trevor was my best friend in high school. After Victoria and I broke up, I threw myself into my career, and our friendship gradually cooled. But in my heart, I had always considered him a very important friend. Trevor finally looked at me directly. He sized me up and down, then let out a sneer. "Of course, if Vicky hadn't asked me to, do you think I would have been friends with you? Don't be naive, Sincere. With your background, you're not qualified to be in our social circle." I knew Trevor was wealthy, so when he first approached me in high school, I was grateful. Because of him, no one dared to bully me in high school. It was also Trevor who, when I was unsure about Victoria's feelings for me, patiently affirmed my thoughts time and time again. He was the one who told me Victoria liked me. Even my confession to Victoria after graduation had Trevor's encouragement behind it. But in the end, both my first love and my once close friend were nothing but a joke. Ethan wrapped his arm around Victoria's shoulder, looking at me with a smile. "I heard from Vicky that your family isn't well off, and since you took care of her for me for so many years, I won't ask you for a wedding gift today." Trevor immediately chimed in with a cold laugh. "You think too highly of him, Eth. How could he afford a gift? I bet he's making maybe a few grand a month right now. It's a question whether he can even support himself." Trevor's words drew a laugh from Victoria. An old classmate nearby spoke up hesitantly. "But the suit Sincere is wearing looks pretty expensive." The man's voice was soft, but we were close enough to hear him clearly. Trevor's expression immediately soured. He snorted, crossing his arms with a look of utter disdain. "Who knows if he rented it to show off? He'll probably have to leave early to return it." I always knew Trevor had a sharp tongue. In high school, because Victoria treated me differently, some guys at school didn't like me. Whenever that happened, Trevor would stand up for me. The way he talked about those guys back then was no different from how he was talking about me now. The same condescension, the same coldness and contempt. Thinking back, he probably felt miserable having to stick by my side for 3 years of high school. Trevor was about to say more, but Victoria interrupted him. She looked at me and said softly, "Sincere, I know I used you, but You didn't exactly lose out, did you? Without me, you probably would have never had a girlfriend like me in your life." Such twisted and shameless words. I almost laughed out of sheer anger. "Did I beg you to be with me?" My tone was harsh with fury, and Victoria's face changed. She frowned and said impatiently, "If you're really that upset, I'll have Eth arrange a position for you at his dad's company as compensation. Don't be ungrateful. On your own, you could never get into the Shaw Corporation in your entire life. That shaky, on the verge of collapse company? Who would want to work there?" Ethan nodded solemnly, even kindly explaining to me, "Sincere, you might not understand, but my father's company is one of the top in the industry. You'd better not be too greedy." Looking at Ethan's face, I finally understood the desperation Jonathan Shaw must have felt kneeling before me last night. With such a brainless son, it was no wonder the business he'd built his whole life was on the brink of ruin. I smiled and looked down to adjust my cuffs. "Top in the industry? Ethan, your family's company is about to go bankrupt. Didn't you know?" Chapter 5. Ethan's face turned ashen. "What the hell are you talking about?" It was no wonder Ethan was angry. Anyone whose family company was cursed to go bankrupt at their own wedding wouldn't be in a good mood. Unfortunately for him, I was telling the truth. I shrugged, a hint of mockery in my voice. "Believe it or not, but Ethan, I have a warning for you. If the Shaw Corporation really goes bankrupt, you'll have yourself to blame. Because I wasn't going to fund Jonathan Shaw. Truth be told, last night, watching a man in his 50s kneel before me, I was somewhat moved. The Shaw Corporation was a sunset company. Even if it survived this crisis, it would never return to its former glory. This investment was undoubtedly a gamble, but I wasn't short on cash. I was moved because I thought of my own father. He was around the same age as Jonathan Shaw, and I thought, if my father ever had to beg someone so humbly, I would be devastated. So I told Jonathan Shaw I would seriously consider it. But today, looking at Ethan's smug face, I had made up my mind. I would not invest. I heard from friends in the industry that Jonathan Shaw had begged many people and all had refused him. I was his last hope. Too bad that hope was now personally extinguished by his son. Ethan glared at me, as if he wanted to eat me alive. Beside him, Trevor burst out laughing and clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "You're not actually going to believe him, are you? He's just some office drone. What would he know about this stuff? He's just trying to scare you. I've got to say, Sincere, you've learned to make threats after a few years, but who do you think you are? Let me tell you, the class divide is something you'll never overcome in your life." Trevor laughed, the disdain in his eyes for me completely undisguised. Even Victoria shook her head, looking at me with disappointment. "Sincere, you've changed." Seeing Victoria's pretentious act made my blood boil, and I snapped, "Shut the hell up. Who the hell do you think you are?" My words made Victoria's face turn pale, then red. Just as she was about to retaliate, a commotion erupted outside the hall. "Get out of my way, I'm Isabel Thorne. Who dares to stop me, the heavy?" Doors were kicked open, and a woman in a black leather jacket strode in. Her eyes locked onto Ethan, and without hesitation, she marched up and slapped him across the face. The sound was so loud it made my own cheek sting. "Ethan Shaw, you son of a bitch!" I knew this woman. She was Isabel Thorne, the only daughter of the Thorne family. Contrary to her name, Isabel was a real spitfire, fiercely passionate, and not afraid to offend anyone. It was only because of her family's immense wealth and power that she had survived this long. Ethan was caught completely off guard, and his face quickly swelled up. Victoria supported his arm, her eyes full of concern. Then she glared at Isabel. "Miss Thorne, Ethan and I are truly in love. You can't tear us apart," I spit. "On your true love, you knew he had a fiancée, and you still seduced him. What are you if not the other woman?" So she was Ethan's fiancée. In that case, Ethan was in deep trouble. I couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle, which was particularly noticeable in the silent hall. Isabel's sharp gaze immediately shot over to me. I couldn't avoid it. But soon, the anger in her eyes faded, replaced by confusion. Sincere? What are you doing here? Don't we have an acquisition meeting this afternoon? You didn't go? Chapter 6. Isabel Thorne's words made everyone's eyes fall on me. I guiltily rubbed my nose and nodded. Well, something came up. Trevor frowned, his gaze shifting back and forth between me and Isabel. You two know each other? I wanted to stop Isabel from talking, but her mouth was already firing like a machine gun, spilling everything. What do you mean? Do we know each other? Don't you know him? Are you kidding me? Sincere's company is the dark horse that's been skyrocketing in recent years, and you're asking me if we know each other? Then again, birds of a feather flock together. It's normal for trash like you, who don't care about business at all, to not know him. Isabel sneered, her verbal assault hitting everyone present. Trevor's face darkened, while on the other side, Ethan finally recovered. His cheek was still red and swollen, the handprint now looking particularly comical. But Ethan maintained a stern face, his angry gaze fixed on Isabel. Isabel, I've told you many times I don't like you. The engagement was forced on us by our families against my will. It wasn't my choice. Isabel scoffed and rolled her eyes. I spit on that your dad used our engagement to leech resources from the Thorne family, and you didn't say anything then. Now you're telling me it wasn't your choice? So you get all the benefits but don't want the bride? How come you get to have it both ways? Besides, if you were really unwilling, you could have proposed to end the engagement. What's the meaning of having a secret wedding here? Trying to make a fool out of me? I looked at Ethan in surprise. I had assumed that if he was marrying Victoria, everything must have been settled. I never imagined it was a secret wedding. Sincere, tell me, aren't they being completely unreasonable? Isabel suddenly called my name. I was stunned for a moment, then nodded vigorously. She acted as if she had found an ally and immediately stood by my side. Ethan looked at me, then at Isabel, and suddenly it was as if he'd figured everything out. His face was no longer dark, his eyes no longer clouded. He looked like a tree in spring. Sincere, I underestimated you. I had no idea what Ethan was talking about now and just looked at him quizzically. Fortunately, he didn't seem to expect a reply and continued on his own. You brought Isabel here, didn't you? You're both putting on this act to make us believe you've done well for yourself since graduation, all to make Vicky regret it. Too bad, Sincere. A person's nature doesn't change. No matter how well you pretend, I can still see you for what you are, a good for nothing. You will never escape your fate of being poor in this lifetime. Ethan looked at me mockingly, seemingly eager to see me crumble after my lie was exposed. But I just exchanged a look with Isabel, our eyes filled with mutual helplessness. Isabel paused for a moment before speaking slowly. Is he mentally ill? That simple question successfully made Ethan's face darken. Victoria, on the other hand, walked up to me again, her eyes filled with a sort of pity and compassion. Sincere, I know this is a huge blow for you, but you can't just give up. I never loved you. You don't have to tell such a colossal lie for my sake. Whether you're rich or poor, no matter what you become, my heart has only ever had room for Eth. As she spoke, she turned and gave Ethan a deep, loving look. If there weren't so many people around, I was afraid they would start kissing passionately right then and there. I sighed, feeling a dull throb in my temples. I had no desire to watch this farce any longer. I took out my phone. Who are you calling? Ethan asked with a frown. I waved my phone and answered with a smile, tattling to your dad. Chapter 7. Ethan looked at me as if I were an idiot, but I didn't care. Jonathan Shaw answered the phone quickly, his voice as humble as it was last night. Mr. Clark, have you made a decision? I didn't answer his question, instead asking, Mr. Shaw, do you know what day it is today? Jonathan was clearly taken aback. I continued, Today is your son's wedding day. Wedding? As I expected, Jonathan Shaw had no idea about Ethan's wedding. The Shaw family was in a precarious position right now, and offending Isabel Thorne at this juncture was not a smart move. Moreover, I hadn't seen Jonathan Shaw at all since I arrived, which meant he wasn't even here. I gave him the name of the hotel. A series of small noises came from the other end of the line, suggesting a state of chaos. After I hung up, Trevor was the first to question me. "So, what did Eth's dad say to you, Mr. Clark?" He dragged out the last two words with a sarcastic tone, as if mocking my overconfidence. "Mr. Shaw will be here shortly." I ignored him and simply found a seat, even having the leisure to pour myself a cup of tea. Isabel, seeing there was a show to watch, sat down next to me. Ethan sneered, looking at me as if I were a tiny ant. "Sincere, have you lost your mind after working for a couple of years? You think my dad will listen to you? In your dreams. Hey Eth, you've got it wrong. I bet there was no one on the other end of that call. It was all an act. I'll say this right now. If Uncle Shaw really shows up sincere, I'll get on my knees and call you Dad." They went on, making no effort to hide their disdain for me. They were completely unaware that in my eyes, they were the real clowns. "All right, stop playing along with Sincere's act. Vicky, Eth, it's almost time. Let's get started." Trevor shot me one last eye roll and urged the couple to begin the ceremony. The crowd that had gathered around us gradually dispersed. I remained calmly seated, replying to messages on my phone. Isabel couldn't sit still and nudged me with her arm. "Hey, what's your relationship with them?" My fingers paused over the keyboard, but I didn't look up. "Worse than you. I was Ethan's substitute." "Holy crap, Victoria really plays for keeps, huh?" Isabel's eyes widened, her mouth agape. I shrugged helplessly. She patted my shoulder in a gesture of solidarity between fellow sufferers. Soon, the lights dimmed. Victoria appeared on the aisle, a spotlight on her. Her face was as beautiful as ever, but in my eyes now, it was as ugly as a demon's. Ethan stood at the other end, looking at her with deep affection. They gazed at each other while a slideshow of their relationship played on the big screen behind them. Ironically, I had taken many of the photos of Victoria myself. Just as their hands finally clasped and the officiant was about to begin the ceremony, the doors to the hall burst open. A panting Jonathan Shaw stood at the entrance, his suit and hair a mess. His face was flushed, and he pointed at the stunned Ethan on the stage and roared, "Ethan, you damn fool, do you have any idea what you're doing? See? When it comes to problem children, you have to go to the parents." Chapter 8. Jonathan Shaw's sudden arrival brought the ceremony to a screeching halt. Ethan on the stage was clearly unprepared for this turn of events. He froze on the spot, his voice trembling. "Dad, how did you—" Jonathan rushed onto the stage and grabbed Ethan by the ear. "How did I get here, is that it? If I hadn't come, how would I have known you'd do something so idiotic? Getting married behind my back. Have you lost your damn mind, Ethan?" Although Jonathan was no longer young, his voice boomed like a bell, and his furious expression sent a chill down even my spine. But at this critical moment, Victoria just had to interfere. "Uncle, Ethan and I are truly in love. Truly in love. Don't think I don't know what you're after, just the housekeeper's daughter," going on. "About being childhood sweethearts, I spit on that I didn't expose you before out of respect for you as a girl, but it seems I underestimated you." Jonathan's words not only made Victoria's face drain of color, but also stunned everyone present. She was the daughter of the Shaw family's housekeeper in high school. Victoria's clothes and expenses were all top-notch, which led to rumors that she was the daughter of some wealthy family. Who would have thought that the person who kept calling others country bumpkins had faked her own identity? Tears welled up in Victoria's eyes, and she looked like she was about to burst into tears. Trevor couldn't stand it anymore and shot up from his seat. "Uncle Shaw, so what if she's the housekeeper's daughter?" "Vicky is the kindest girl I've ever met." Jonathan, still holding Ethan by the ear, glared at Trevor. "Is that so?" If you like her so much, why don't you marry her? I'd like to see if your father wouldn't beat you to a pulp if you married Victoria." Trevor's mouth opened, but no words came out. For families like theirs, profit was the most important thing. Jonathan dragged Ethan by the ear all the way to me. He shed his previous fury and bowed slightly to me. "Mr. Clark, thank you so much for calling me. If it weren't for you, this brat would have been the death of me." The moment Jonathan spoke, Ethan's eyes filled with shock as he looked at me. Even Trevor and Victoria stared with wide eyes. I stood up and smiled. "It was nothing. I haven't asked, Mr. Clark, what brings you here?" I looked at Ethan with a smile. His face was pale, his lips trembling. My smile widened as I said to Jonathan, "Oh, I'm a high school classmate of Victoria's." Jonathan's eyes instantly lit up. "In that case, then." "But Mr. Shaw, your son seems to have a big problem with me. He even said that people like me are destined to work for you our whole lives. Oh, and he wanted to offer me a position at your company." "What job do you think would suit me, Mr. Shaw?" I interrupted Jonathan, my tone teasing, but my eyes were ice cold. The smile on Jonathan's face instantly froze. But Ethan, still oblivious to the change, continued to shout, "What's with the sarcastic tone, Sincere? It's your own fault for not being clear from the start. You can't blame me for misunderstanding besides, so what if you have a company now? How could it possibly compare to our family's company? Shut up." Jonathan's face was terrifyingly grim. He didn't hesitate to turn and slap Ethan across the face. As if that wasn't enough, he kicked Ethan to the ground. You prodigal son, Mr. Clark, please don't listen to his nonsense. Please reconsider the investment." Chapter 9. Beads of sweat formed on Jonathan Shaw's forehead from the sheer panic. Meanwhile, Ethan lay on the ground like a stray dog, his face a mask of disbelief. "Dad, why did you hit me? What did I say that was wrong? You shut your mouth every day. It's Victoria this, Victoria that, or just eating and drinking and having fun. You don't ask about the company at all. What do you know? Now you've offended the Thorne family, and you've offended Mr. Clark. You're trying to kill me." As Jonathan spoke, he started coughing, his face flushed and his eyes bloodshot. He walked toward me, trembling, his voice filled with pleading. "Mr. Clark, I'm begging you. I built the Shaw Corporation with my own 2 hands. I can't bear to watch it just disappear like this." I looked at Jonathan Shaw, my heart filled with a mix of emotions. Ethan was undoubtedly a scumbag, but Jonathan's desperate state was truly pitiful. In the end, I could only sigh. "I can invest, but on one condition: you are not to give Ethan another cent. From this day forward, the Shaw Corporation has nothing to do with him." This was essentially asking Jonathan to disown Ethan. The budding smile on Jonathan's face froze instantly. Ethan had just managed to get up from the floor with Victoria's help when he heard my words. He sneered, completely unconcerned. "Sincere, what are you talking about? There's no way my dad would—" "Okay." Jonathan's voice was soft, but incredibly firm. It was as if Ethan's throat had been squeezed shut. He couldn't utter another word. He looked at Jonathan in shock and pushed Victoria away. "Dad, what are you saying? I'm your biological son, Ethan. Dad has no choice. You're a grown man now, with hands and feet. You won't starve." Jonathan looked at him with reluctance in his eyes, but he didn't change his decision. It was only then that Ethan realized he had lost his greatest support. His legs went weak and he collapsed to the floor. His eyes were vacant, as if all his support had been suddenly ripped away. I ignored Ethan, my gaze fixed on the equally pale Trevor. "Trevor, do you remember what you said earlier?" Trevor looked at me in disbelief. "Sincere, even if you're rich now, you can't humiliate me like this. Humiliate you? Weren't those your own words? Of course, if you're unwilling, that's fine. I imagine Mr. Jones has so many sons, he wouldn't mind losing 1 or 2. Mr. Jones was notoriously promiscuous in their circle, with countless illegitimate children. If he found out Trevor had offended me, he would likely disown him without a second thought." Despair filled Trevor's eyes, but he knew I was telling the truth. Finally, he walked over to me. Then he slowly knelt. "Dad, Daddy, good boy." I saw tears of humiliation fall from Trevor's eyes and splash onto the floor. But so what? If you bully others, you should be prepared to be bullied in return. I glanced around one last time, let out a cold laugh, and turned to leave. But I felt someone tug at the corner of my jacket. I looked back. It was Victoria. She looked at me with a complicated expression, but I just snatched my clothes from her grasp and walked away without looking back. The one that got away. She was nothing more than an old stale crumb. Chapter 10. With my investment, the Shaw Corporation finally returned to its former glory. Ethan was kicked out by Jonathan. I heard he tried to beg his father for forgiveness several times, but was thrown out by security each time. For some reason, Isabel Thorne started hanging around me, claiming that the events of the wedding day had forged a revolutionary friendship between us. She would periodically share the latest gossip about Ethan and the others. After being kicked out, Ethan was despondent for a while, but soon Victoria became pregnant. Perhaps a sense of manly responsibility suddenly kicked in, and he started looking for a job. But his spoiled rich kid attitude and non-existent resume led to constant rejection. He eventually became a delivery driver. I heard he and Victoria fought constantly, a far cry from the golden couple they once were. As for Trevor, although I didn't go out of my way to cause him trouble, word of what happened at the wedding still reached his father's ears. Trevor was packed up and put on a plane overnight. They said he was going to Africa for field research, which was basically a form of exile. I was busy managing my company and didn't care much about their lives. But one day, I witnessed quite a scene on the street. It seemed a couple was arguing publicly. The man, a delivery driver, had caught his wife cheating and had grabbed a nearby brick to attack her. Stuck in traffic, I idly rolled down my window to watch the commotion. Without any warning, my eyes met Ethan's as he was in the middle of the assault. Victoria was lying on the ground, blood pooling beneath her, her condition unknown. Ethan was taken away by the police. Isabel later told me that Victoria, tired of their poor life, had found a new sugar daddy. The baby in her belly wasn't even Ethan's. But now the baby was gone. Victoria was paralyzed from the waist down, and her new benefactor had abandoned her. And Ethan went to prison. Isabel asked me what I thought about it all. I didn't say a word, just tapped on the laptop in front of her. "Your father said I need to make sure you finish this proposal today. Get to it, Arg. You're a demon, what was there to think? They were just a bunch of useless drains on society."